All right. So before and after picture, this was kind of the ad, living your life in high resolution. So maybe you feel pretty decent. Maybe you got some aches and pains. Maybe you wake up with a headache here and there, some fogginess, and you just feel like there could be some sort of shift so that you could be starting to feel even more vital. And I think a lot of people don't realize how vital and how healthy you can feel until you start to do it. That's a big feedback we get from a lot of these sort of programs, or even just helping people with their diet when they come to see me for different consultations. What you start to notice is more energy, less brain fog, less pain, less inflammation, that kind of stuff. And so we go from this kind of grainy fogginess to a little more clarity. Emotionally as well, things change, and we'll get into that as we get farther along. So if you need to interrupt me for anything, if you have a burning question, please feel free to do so, but we'll reserve some time at the end for that as well. Let's see. All right, so yeah, we talked about that. So again, thank you all for being here on a Thursday evening. That's the first step, just by making that decision to come and sort of listen. One, whatever you decide to do from this talk tonight, it'll make it a lot easier. And two, it makes sure that you sort of set in motion your intention, and that intention just by being here is that your health matters to you and you want to make some changes perhaps, or you just want to feel even better than you already are. So I said, first day of spring. In Chinese medicine, springtime's likened to the organ of the liver. We talk a lot about the liver nowadays. That's a major organ of elimination, detoxification. Your body does it naturally. That's what the liver is up to. That's what the gallbladder does. Now, in our culture, especially in our medical system, those organs often get overlooked, so much so that what do we do with the gallbladder? Typically take it out, right? Very important organ, one of the most important organs in Chinese medicine. In fact, it's called an extraordinary organ. It does a lot of other things than just hold on to gallstones from eating too much bad quality food. So we're going to talk about liver gallbladder tonight. We're going to talk about how you can support those organs. They really need some love in our culture. And in Chinese medicine, those organs have a lot to do with emotional states like stress. Anybody stressed at all? As well as joint pain, sinew, that kind of stuff. So everything's connected from a holistic point of view. So again, those organs need some love, and those are going to be our primary focus tonight. We talk about maybe spring cleaning our homes. We talk about maybe spring people start cleaning the inside of their cars, getting crap out of the basement. Well, there's one place that we all live, and we only get one place to live in our whole entire one life this time around, we'll say. And that's this body that you have right now. So, you can move houses, you can get a new car, but you can only get one body. And so how we take care of that is almost, in my belief, much more important than cars and houses, things like that. So we're going to be talking about that. How do we care for this? How do we only get one? So how do we take good care of it to keep it in good working order? So tonight we'll go through what we're going to be talking about, why it's so important, and then how you're going to do it. So goals tonight, let's modify current lifestyle to a new, healthy normal. So what I mean by that is lifestyle is really key for all aspects of health. When folks come to see me for acupuncture, maybe it's just for pain, they start to feel better, their back's in less pain. They want to know, what else can this do? What can I work on? We start to address even early on, even just with the back pain, lifestyle changes, because maybe it's the posture, maybe it's how they're driving in the car, or maybe it's the food they're eating contributed to inflammation. What you're going to start to see is when you can make these subtle lifestyle changes, they all add up, and they all add up together in a synergistic way, like our name here. We're also going to focus on creating a lifetime of health and vitality. We have, perhaps you could say, at least the data shows that we have, compared to most countries, a much higher age expectancy, but our quality of life is very poor. So people are perhaps living a little longer, but the quality of life is very poor. So when we get into that word vitality, how many 80-year-olds can you think that are really vital that we used to see so much. Think about other cultures, specifically, my study comes from and what I kind of grew up in, the Asian culture, where health is really a part of the lifestyle. You see that we have a lot more centenarians there, so people that live 100 or older, right? Japan has some of the most, China has quite a bit. And you see, again, that vitality there, folks, like some of my instructors being able in their 80s to, get down and squat really low or have good energy. So we want to encourage that, because I really think we have that ability. We have that ability to be vital through our years, all up into 80s, 90s, 100s. And tonight, if you ever feel like you get a little discouraged, maybe you're on social media, maybe what I'm talking about tonight seems like a lot. Just remember, come back to this idea, 1 degree of change. And what I mean by that is literally making a 1 degree change on the dial, all headed in the direction we want to go. And that's an increase in our health and vitality. So literally, if you try, let's say tomorrow, you try a new vegetable or you go for a walk, that's literally 1 degree of change. Don't worry about tomorrow. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do, my 30 minutes of exercise, and I'm going to do my sauna and this, that, and the other. Those tend not to work when you try and do too much at once. We're going to make small incremental changes that all add up. So I'm going to encourage you, whatever your decision, moving forward in the springtime, and this time to cleanse and purify and nourish your body, that you just start by making that 1 degree change each day. It might literally be drinking some more water, or it might be practicing some joy of some sort. So let's be reminded of that this evening as we go forward into some of the more dense material, but it'll be fun. So this is just a little bit of the why. Why is this important? So tonight we're talking about purification. We're talking about a way to get healthy that you might not have heard of, right? We go typically when something's going awry with our bodies, we go to the doctor and maybe you're prescribed a medication for it, or maybe there's it's all in your head, or maybe surgery or whatever whatever typical nowadays. But what if there were deeper reasons, or what we might call root causes, to some of these illnesses? I've got a good slide here in a minute, do a little quiz together on a good example of that. But right now, let's talk a little more about the why. In 2023, the US spent $722 billion on prescription drugs, and a 13.6% increase compared to 2022. So we're spending a lot of money on research and medication and medicine in general in our country. And this comes from a huge study as well, where it shows the US spends the most out of all the industrialized countries on medicine, but ranks one of the lowest in health outcomes. So the data is not making sense. Health should be getting better as we get better with technology and more access to foods and things like that, but yet everything's going up and up and up compared to 2022. Cancer rates, are they going up or down? They're going up. How much money does the Breast Cancer Awareness Fund make every year? How much does this, that, and the other American Cancer Society? So something's a little off, and that's what I've kind of spent my life trying to figure out. We're going to talk about what's a little off and how to address that. We have solutions. So why purification? 80,000 chemicals registered for use in the US. Processed ingredients, trans fat. I think it's probably becoming more aware now with whatever's going on in politics in our country. There's definitely more discussion, we'll say, about what's in our food. Whatever, wherever you're at, politics, I stay out of it, but wherever you're at, I think that's a positive thing, perhaps, that we're talking more about what's being put in our food and what we're eating and what we're choosing to eat. And research shows that certain chemicals may affect our immune, nervous, and reproductive systems. So we get a lot of young folks come in for fertility treatments. I just see more and more of that. People struggling with fertility, able to get pregnant. Folks in my age category, 25 to 30, 31, 32 years old. That was never a thing. Fertility is, instead of skyrocketing, it's going the other way. It's plummeting. So what's the reason for that? Here's an example. This is a picture of, I think it was Nerds or some sort of candy. This is Nerds candy that's been shipped over to Europe. This is in Great Britain. And all of these kind of candies carry a warning, and it gives all the chemical names. may have adverse effect on activity and attention in children. What do we maybe call that or label it? Maybe ADHD. We see that as sort of issue in our country. So other countries getting our foods imported slap warning labels on them, but we still continue to do that. So if that is affecting the mental health, we'll say, of children, what are all of these other additives and chemicals doing? When you study these chemicals individually, you typically find things like this sign, hazardous chemicals, or the safety data on a lot of these that say, don't consume this. But then when you put it in the food, for some reason, it becomes better all of a sudden. So we're exposed to all that. All that adds up. All of that becomes part of what we'll call our toxic load, kind of what the liver has to process as naturally as an organ, and what our body starts to hold on to. Yeah, you can. Thanks. So I want to briefly just touch on this. Again, everything tonight is stemmed from a positive aspect in the sense that we've got a lot of problems in our country with our health, things going on, but we have a lot of solutions and solutions that work, and solutions that you can use to take your health into your own hands. I really, this was my kind of foundational work around my thesis when I finished out school, when I was trying to kind of distill everything down to what are the main causes of disease in modern culture, no matter what you got going on, from pains to chronic conditions to labels of terms like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or hypothyroidism, whatever you got going on, what's going on there? Why that? Was it just the roll of a dice, genetics, and you got it? No, my research says definitely not. Research does start to point more toward things like this: deficiency, sunlight, water, nutrition. Our food is deeply depleted. Toxicity, we're going to be talking a lot about that tonight. The food, the chemicals we kind of just touched on there. Drugs, stress and trauma, that's a big one, right? For every disease, there exists an emotional component. We know what that's like when we feel stressed or anxious or angry. Maybe our blood pressure gets high when you're angry. Maybe when you're feeling sad and depressed, you kind of have your posture starts to change. There are real physical changes to your health. So emotion and stress cannot be overemphasized about how important it is to support that. When you do things like these purifications, especially in the springtime, you work with that liver organ. Again, in Chinese medicine, the liver associated with things like stress and tension in the body. You start to realize that, wow, maybe a lot of this wasn't in my head, that my body is trying to tell me something. And one of those symptoms that it shares with me to speak that language that I've not been able to listen to for a while, but now I'm going to start listening to, is that tension, that anxiety, maybe the cold hands and feet. And so our body is a beautiful sort of organism in that way, and we can start to pay attention more when we get a little more clear. And when we talk about how to do that tonight, you'll start to notice things like that. So common disease states related to toxicity. I break that word up, disease, into disease, because there's easeful flow of a river, and then something falls in it, it becomes dis-ease. It's not easeful anymore. So maybe if you reflect right now, just in your mind, you might have some of this going on: fatigue, difficulty sleeping, digestion problems, food cravings, weight gain, reduced mental clarity, low libido, migraines, head pain, inflammation, so-called autoimmune, and then dis-ease names like Alzheimer's, neurological things going on, different cancers, different hormonal deficiencies, things like that. All of these can be related to toxicity. All of these can be related to the 200 million pounds of glyphosate we spray in our country every year on food, and then we eat that. And then you may have seen this on products, the Prop 65 warning. It's a little weird. Sometimes it's just slapped on there just because they want to make sure things are good and it's on healthy things. But other times it is on things like sofas and mattresses, because there really is toxic formaldehyde in there, and it'll usually tell you. So that's sometimes a useful tool, sometimes not. Unfortunately, that's been kind of bastardized the last few years because everyone's just putting it on everything. So we talked about the liver. The liver kind of maybe should look like that on the right. Most people, this is increasing ever and ever more, as a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. This liver starts to back up. It starts to get full. And then here's a picture of a gallbladder with all these gallstones. I'm sure maybe you've had that experience, or you know someone in your family or close by that have had their gallbladder removed or have struggled with gallstones or acid reflux or a lot of these digestive complaints. Maybe you know folks or even yourself going through things into the colon, constipation, bloating, gas, polyps, diverticuli, that kind of stuff. All of that's related to the terrain of the colon being out of whack. Maybe there's toxicity going on in there that's damaging the lining. We've heard a lot about nowadays something called leaky gut. What's that from? Well, I can tell you glyphosate works by poking holes in the guts of little bugs. What do you think it's going to do to humans? Then we might call that leaky gut. So when we start to cleanse these things out, the liver can regenerate. I think most of us know that if you cut a piece of the liver out, it regenerates. Not all organs do that. The bowels are constantly sloughing off. You have a whole new set of bowels about every couple of weeks or so. If you're providing the body what it needs and you're getting rid of what needs to get rid of. And so it's totally possible to reignite a lot of the organs of elimination. So tonight we're going to talk a little more about liver, things like that. But I wanted to kind of give a visual because I wasn't going to show you the real intense stuff, but like a lot of these old school nature cure doctors doing these kind of gallbladder flushes, things like that. There's a lot of gunk and junk that comes out of folks. So let's play a little quiz here. What disease is this? Some numbness, some dull pain, parts of the body, perhaps tremors, unsteady walking, memory complications, nausea, digestive changes. Any guesses? Yeah, it could be diabetes with the neuropathy-like aspect. A lot of these right overlap. But really, if you look at this, if this was on like a board exam or something, you'd tell that's kind of a classic, maybe Parkinson's disease. Yeah. Nope. It's mercury poisoning. You Google mercury poisoning, you go to Cleveland Clinic, these exact symptoms are down there. Now, that is not to say everyone with Parkinson's has mercury. But you'd be surprised how many people with Parkinson's have mercury in their mouths or have had exposure to a lot of these heavy metals in their workplace. And then lo and behold, when you remove the mercury, the amalgam fillings that folks still are getting in, and you start to do a detox like this, a lot of these symptoms start to change and the health starts to return. So I thought this was a good example of, everybody thinks like, okay, memory problems, this, that, and the other, Alzheimer's. Well, that's maybe what we call it. And that's why I like to get away from those labels, because that gets us away, especially as practitioners and clinicians, from the root cause. And that is, this person's brain's full of aluminum. This person, their posture is horrible and they don't move their arms when they walk and there's no proper flow to the brain. And so this can't be nourished and the lymph can't move out. So there's a lot more going on here. But we start to see these chronic conditions that we think are untreatable, perhaps can have a change. And there's a lot of research out there on that. So mercury poisoning. So tonight, no more Band-Aid solutions. Changing your terrain is the path to long-term wellness. So we're going to talk about this as the terrain, your whole body. It's like an ecosystem, like a forest. When everything's working together, when everything's in balance, Chinese medicine's all about balance. The idea of health is about balance. You start to develop vitality, you start to develop health. That's a long-term change. There's quick fixes for certain, and they're useful at times, and we got to get out of a jam, right? But in terms of long-term lasting health, we want to start to adjust the terrain and that lifestyle to support it. If you go out in the woods and you start to dump all your trash and pour acid and gasoline out there, what's going to happen? Things are going to die, water's going to be polluted, it's going to really change the terrain of that environment. When you fill your body with all these dyes and chemicals and the soaps and the shampoos and the perfumes and all this stuff that we're exposed to now, your body's going to have a hard time keeping up. And so we need to get in there and help support it, get those exposures out of our life. And that's in your packet on how to do that. And we'll talk about it. And then also come back in and make sure our elimination pathways are open and we're getting rid of that. So lastly, and then we'll get into how to do this. Important note. Our bodies are literally meant to detox. That's what our bodies do. So I don't want to get the idea here as well that you can just solve everything with a detox. Sometimes there's some serious stuff going on. That might be a first step, however, to initiating that momentum in the correct direction. So some health problems, especially chronic, this can be a really good first step to try and level the playing field and see what you're working with. And so sometimes people treat the results versus the cause. Even in holistic medicine, we kind of like, oh, let's just detox or parasite cleanse or do this or that. And we might just be addressing kind of the symptoms. You might feel better a little bit, but you're not really getting to the fact that if you can't detox the liver if there's a ton of pressure on it. So maybe there's structural stuff. So we have to understand why the stagnation is there and why is the body not cleaning properly. And one reason is that it might be so backed up and needs support. It needs that dietary change. It needs that hydration. It needs the vital nutrition to be put into the system, filled up just right, so that it can then get back to doing what it does naturally. But you just keep bombarding it with all the gunk and the junk, it's going to say, okay, I can't, and I'm going to start depositing stuff. One of my teachers says the body, just like nature, is self-organizing, self-regulating, and self-healing. We just have to give it that nudge. And that's what we do. That's what we do here. That's how acupuncture works. That's why we choose the specific supplements that we do use in very specific ways, because they're not going to add to that toxic load. They're food-based. They're real. Your body understands them. And again, we live in such a weird world nowadays with so much toxicity that we need some nudge. Sophia and I, we've come a long way, and we eat very well. We grow a lot of our own stuff. We get up. We don't really go to the grocery store. We have a lot of farmers that we work with. Even myself, I'm doing a cleanse during the springtime because things add up over time. We fly. I was in school for a long time in different apartments and scenarios. You're exposed to stuff. So here's how your body should work. On the right, we've got the cells. When things get cleansed, they go through the organs and the tissues. The lymph system's kind of your garbage cleaner of the body. The liver and the bile push things out, and then it comes through the colon, through the feces. Good bowel movements. But how many people are backed up somewhere along this drainage funnel? Maybe it's constipation, so maybe things are coming out, but they don't have anywhere to go, so things back up. Maybe the lymph is blocked because there's so much toxicity. Maybe the cells don't have enough energy because they're not getting what they need. They're not getting the fuel they need in the sense of vital foods and nutrition and minerals. And so it starts to back up, things start to accumulate, and then you start to develop dis-ease. You start to see symptoms. So everyday encounters that increase your toxic load, biggies, things that you might not think about. There's stuff more in your packet. But yeah, cleaning supplies, candles and room fresheners. So these are easy things, right? That might be more approachable for some of us to switch and change. Smoking and alcohol. You're just exposing yourself to chemicals there. And a lot of folks don't realize with pharmaceuticals. I think I have a slide here talking about that in a moment. Yeah, so we talked about this, our healthcare trends. Nearly 99% of pharmaceutical feedstocks and reagents are derived from petrochemicals. That means gasoline, oil, right? That's a lot. That's 99%. That's where they originate from, sort of the Rockefeller medicine idea. He was petrochemical oil baron. He was the first to start making a lot of these pharmaceutical drugs. And so a lot of these medications have their source in a chemical that you would never eat or want to consume. So thinking about that, we got a good handout in there, drugs that gobble up vitamins. You get to see different pharmaceutical drugs and how they deplete your body on things like CoQ10, right? That's a biggie. We know that from cholesterol statin drugs. Got a talk on cholesterol that we can refer you to. But that's another big exposure risk that we see. So something to look into and research on your own. We have a toxicity questionnaire. So think about this as we go forward now. Do you or have you eaten processed foods? Do you eat meat that's not organic? Do you drink soda? Do you eat out regularly? Do you drink coffee? That's a big one that people don't realize. A lot of mold and heavy metals in coffee. Tap water, are you filtering your water? The foods you eat, if they're packaged and bottled, do they have a lot of preservatives, things like that? There was this in the Vietnam War, the Vietnamese, again, just interesting thing here, not meaning to be morbid, but the Vietnamese bodies would decompose very quickly but the American soldiers' bodies would take many weeks to decompose. And they say that that was because of all the chemicals and preservatives that were in the bodies. So again, this is meant to preserve foods from going bad. It stops life process, biology. That's what we are. So when you fill yourself with all these preservatives, you get preserved. So we talked about what these toxins can contribute to. And when you get rid of those, what might you notice? Better digestion. That's a biggie. People say, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm actually digesting my food. I'm not bloated after meals. I don't have acid reflux. It's such a biggie in our culture and such an easy fix with dietary means and digestive support. Might notice better sleep. How many people struggle with sleep? How many people struggle with hair and skin issues? How many brain fog, memory, that kind of stuff, early stages of that. Just energy levels overall. If you fall asleep during my talk tonight, you have to do a detox kit. So who says all this? All the way back to Hippocrates. All disease begins in the gut. He was all about cleansing and elimination. Got a lot of these natural doctors. Probably a lot of you follow the lady on social media there. She's kind of all about that. But a lot of folks, even these old school naturopaths, which was one time the biggest form of medicine in the United States back in the early 1900s, he talks about cleaning the bowel, the liver, clean the blood. Your body has the ability to heal itself completely of any and all disease, more getting rid of morbid matter, that kind of stuff. So you can Google all this, find tons of people talking about this. Step one, stop paying to toxify yourself. So think about what you're literally buying things to toxify yourself, from the foods and the shampoos and all that. You deserve a lot more than that. Don't think about that when you pick things up, go to purchase it. What's the value of health in a lot of these products? Again, that's in your packet. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time. So purification. Learn about foods for good health, removing bad fats, changing what you eat, especially the meats, reduce refined sugars, replace grains, drink more water. Here's the basics. Put the good in, get the bad out, breathe, do some movement, nourish with what we're going to support you with, hydrate, love, and I think there was joy on there. That's important as well. Nothing changes your blood pH quicker than joy. It's been experiments with in the actual arteries, pH meters being placed in. Doctor comes in and it says, Bob, not good news. Super acidic. Hey, great news. Super, pretty much balanced. It's pretty amazing how quick that pH will change based on your emotions. All right, so how do we do this? Our last bit here. So we've got a couple, we'll call them programs, protocols, ways to do this that have been sort of fine-tuned over many years, and we sort of partnered with Standard Process to do this because that's really some of the only, along with some select others that we have here, some of the only supplements, vitamins, things like that I'll take, because they're all food-based, they're whole food sourced. Oldest supplement company in the US, one of the first multivitamins, Dr. Royal Lee back in 1929. A lot of the stuff in these, they're growing on their farm in Wisconsin, and their soil is, I'm a farmer, I'm a gardener, I'm a grower. It's all about the soil, just like it's all about your gut, your microbiome, your health, your biology. It's all reflected in the soil. Poor quality food comes from poor quality soil. This stuff is grown in some pretty amazing soil up there in Wisconsin, all organically. So we have a 21 day, and I'll get into why would you do this versus that. We'll get there. We have a 10-day, and then sometimes we have a customized approach. Folks aren't here tonight, but we have, specifically, I would say, folks who are trying to get pregnant, working on fertility. I've got a much more specific, there's much more specific protocol for that. That's about building. So if you're of childbearing age and wanting to get pregnant, there's a little different protocol that I think I would recommend. Maybe you got a specific chronic disease state and you're kind of confused and maybe there's a lot going on. You just want to talk with somebody. Those are times where you might set up a herbal consult with us to chat about that. But other than that, if you're looking for weight management, some weight loss, if you're looking to feel better, remember that one slide, all the stuff, energy, mood, body pain, blood sugar, cholesterol. That's one other topic. If you're looking to just get healthier and vital, these are great starts. Um, let's talk a little bit about this 21 day real quick. So this 21-day program seems like a lot when you think about 21 days, but when you break that down, that's not even a whole month. And what this is great for is if you are ready to make some lifestyle change. If you just want to jump in and if you kind of want to change the way you eat and feel about food, this is a great way to do it because it's all laid out for you. It also addresses a deep aspect of detoxification. And to do that, sometimes it requires some support because sometimes you can go into some fasting or some detoxing you might find online, and people feel, excuse my language, kind of like crap with that. And that's because there is a lot of stuff coming out of the body, and maybe their elimination pathways aren't open, or maybe they're not getting the right support to bind and cleanse and purify. This has got all that support in there, and I'll go through what's in here in just a moment to show you. But a little outline, it's basically a dietary change. So on days 1 through 7, you're gonna no meat. So it's somewhat of a form of intermittent fasting. It's somewhat of what we might call a pseudo fast. You can eat as much vegetable materials as you'd like to help satiate that hunger. But I find that this is better than jumping right into, let's say, nowadays is very hot topic fasting, things like this. A lot of folks are not ready for that. I practice certain aspects of fasting, and there's some serious preparation for that. So this is awesome because you're sort of mimicking it in a way, but still really nourishing yourself. Because again, I've over all the years I've been experimenting and doing this on myself, you kind of got to get to that point where you're nourished so that when you do detoxify, you have the energy resources that you need. And this does all that because a lot of folks are not only toxic, and I hate to use that term, but that's kind of it, but they're also undernourished. So when you combine both of those, there's kind of a lot to support and unravel there. So we want to detox, but we also want to nourish at the same time. Get the stuff in that you need, get the good in, get the bad out. That does this. There's some shake mixes. That's a really great way to get a lot of nutrition in your body at one time. So these are powdered mixes. Again, a lot of materials grown on standard process farm. There's a ton of recipes for shake mixes. We'll go through that in a moment. But that really tends to fill people up. Again, a lot of folks are not overeating because they're super, super hungry all the time and they require the calories. A lot of folks are overeating because we're constantly searching for that nutrition that we're not getting from our empty foods. So when you start to do that, you eat less. So that's when I talk about a lifestyle change. This is great because you start to be able to satiate your body with the good foods and you don't desire all of this non-food material, let's say, empty things. We got some products in here. I think we'll skip to that. So day 1 through 7, and then the other big thing about this, days 8 through 21, you start to add in high quality protein sources. That's like good grass-fed beef, high quality pasture-raised chicken, wild caught fish if you choose to do that. So don't worry about that. Here's foods that you can absolutely enjoy. Vegetables. We don't really do potatoes. I don't really do potatoes. That's a whole nother talk. Those are high carb, we'll say for now. A lot of toxins in potatoes. Fruit sparingly. Again, all this is in much more detail in the little book it comes with. Pseudo grains, an example would be quinoa or wild rice. Wild rice is not like a white rice or brown rice. It's a type of grass. And you can get that on Amazon or Whole Foods. Kroger's has it every now and then. High quality fats. A lot of people are fat deficient in our culture. We're eating all this stuff like toxic seed oils. So grass-fed butter, ghee, olive oil, coconut oil. And then on days 11 through 21, again, those high quality proteins. If I could summarize all this, you're just eating real food. You're kind of eating what we should be eating. You're eating foods that are what I call one ingredient foods. So that would be example, sweet potato. You don't turn it over. There's no nutrition fact on it. A hunk of grass-fed beef. That's it, right? A salad, there maybe a few ingredients because there's radish and carrot and lettuce in there, but that's it. There's no polysorbate 80, red 40, this, that, and the other. These are real foods. Just remember that I'm eating real foods and I'm eating clean Foods to avoid. These are things that we should just avoid in general, not all the time. Dairy and eggs are very high quality, good for you food if done correctly, organic, pasture raised, grass fed, dairy if it's raw, that kind of stuff. Eggs, farm raised, that kind of stuff. But like I said, in this 21 day, we're avoiding those for now because we want to really support the detox pathways, and those can be a little harder to digest for some people. And you're not going to find good dairy at the grocery store. Even the organic stuff, I'm sorry, I would never drink any of that milk. All of that carries the organic label, but it's over pasteurized, and they add in fake vitamins to it. So that's why we avoid it in this program. Next. So what are in these products here? So we've got some options. We've got some different fiber options. What's fiber do? Fiber, we know, helps bowels move, helps push things through. It also helps to absorb some of that toxicity in the bowels. So bowels need a lot of cleansing, liver and gallbladder. Those are our main ones. A lot of folks hold toxicity in the gut. So whole food fiber versus gastro fiber, there's different options in this 21-day kit. And again, if you choose to do this, you get a beautiful sort of booklet along with it. So easy to follow. Everything's there for you. You can choose between a gastro fiber or a whole food fiber. The gastro fiber is in pills. If you're tired of taking all these pills, because there's a lot just to consume here, because we're trying to nourish the body, I might opt for whole food fiber, which you can add into your shake mixes. It also helps the texture of the shake. Both of these are from high quality organic sources like organic apple, pectin, and beet sort of fiber, and organic oat. It's just, one is capsule, and it's a little, quicker to take, we'll say, but the whole food fiber, if you're tired of all the other pills, you can do that. And also, like I said, helps support your shake mix. Anything else on those fibers that you think of, maybe? Yeah. So again, a lot of people are just tired of all the supplements. People have trouble swallowing, things like that, because people do. This might be a better option for you. And again, you choose one or the other. We've got SP Green Food. That's organic Brussels sprout and kale, supports that healthy liver function. A lot of organic whole food sources like alfalfa as well, these green things. We also have a product in there called SP Cleanse that you do sort of in the beginning of the program. Things like organic juniper berry, red clover, organic black radish, very important for the liver and the biliary system. Milk thistle, we've probably heard about that for liver function. Burdock root, organic cordyceps is a type of mushroom. Again, very clean, high quality things. When we're doing this, we don't want to add more. Let's go on to the next. So that's this up here is what it looks like. This is your shake mix. This is one of your fibers that you choose from. Here we have the whole food, and then SP Green Food and Cleanse. And the program, if we go back 2 slides, maybe, you can see that on days 1 through 7, you take the SP Cleanse, and on days 8 through 21, you do the green food. So not a ton of pills. Here's some example recipes. Again, this is real food. This is sort of just how I've come to find myself eating, and I change based on the seasons. A lot of this probably looks good. A lot of this is seasonal right now. Asparagus is going to start popping up. It's coming up in the garden. You can get this organically at the stores. In here, there's recipe booklets. These are QR codes. You can take pictures. It's in your handout, so you can take a look what recipes are there. We've got things like these quinoa peppers, really good recipes in here. A lot of these shakes you can make them in such a way that they almost taste like dessert. So this is super simple. It's high quality protein. It's good quality herbs to support digestion. There's pumpkin in there, all these foods that really will fill you up. And if you're hungry, just eat more vegetables. There's different things that you can do, maybe add in some more fat. Again, all real foods, one ingredient foods. So those are just literally a small example of recipes. So what can be achieved in 21 days? Address toxins, maintain a healthier weight, live a healthier lifestyle, have more energy, improve digestion. That's the 21-day program. If you want to do that, that's kind of the one I'm focusing my most time on tonight, is because I'm going to be offering for the 3 weeks of the program, just 3 weeks, We're going to meet on Wednesday nights on Zoom for any questions that you have. We're going to be giving out free recipes. We're going to help you modify. If you have, I'm struggling here, or I'm a little hungry here, or I'm too full here. Any questions you have, you get me for 45 minutes that night. You can show up. We're going to just do it on Zoom, so you don't have to leave your house. It's going to be on the computer. I'll record those as well. If you have questions, you can always reach out to the office as well and email. We'll do some email support. But that's for the 21-day program. If you do the 10-day or you do a little something else, you're more than welcome to come to this. I mean, it's good information, but that's specifically to help guide you through each week on those programs. Next. Let's talk about the 10-day. Maybe you're not ready to commit to all 21 days. Maybe you're a little concerned or weary about the changing up all the food. There's a 10-day program that is no supplements. That is just a shake mix. Everything is inside of this. Looks like 10 days where maybe on day 1 you have 1 shake, but when we get into day 5 and 6, you start to have 3 shakes. All of these help with the detoxification process. This one, the diet in terms of food choice, again, all still clean, all still real foods, but next slide, I'll show you an example. This is going to include a lot more option. There's no limit or restriction on the protein early on. And again, protein is not bad. That's a very healthy food choice for many of us. It's just in the 21-day, we limit that in the beginning because we're trying to create a sort of openness and energy to the digestion. That protein typically requires a little more oomph to digest. So we're just opening things up to help create more of a lightness, we'll say. But in the 10-day, you can start right away, high quality proteins like good quality organic grass-fed beef and pasture-raised chicken, plenty of veggies, do fruit, and then those healthy grains. The grains aren't as restricted on this, so you could do sprouted oats. You can get those at Costco. You could do sprouted brown rice, mixing those with fats and high quality foods along with your shake. So maybe you're ready to dip your toes and you just want to get started on something and feel how good it can feel. 10-day might be for you. Next. Here's examples: quinoa and beef skillet, bison soup, sunflower veggie burger, different curry eggs, so you can have eggs on here, good quality ones, that kind of stuff. So not as restricted in terms of dietary choice in the beginning. Next. So here they all are laid out as we come to an end. So the 10-day, great entry level, 21-day, you're going to make some lifestyle changes. That's lasting. This is going to be the biggest change for weight change. It's going to be the biggest change for chronic digestive stuff. It's going to be the biggest change for just feeling really good and getting you kick-started into that lifestyle change, because it really is easy once you start to get into that momentum and you start to feel how good you can feel. You're not going to be attracted to a lot of those foods anymore when you start to nourish. And then we do have some other stuff. I didn't have time tonight to talk about our cell core approach. This is sort of a long term, sometimes can be 6 months. And that's like a deep cellular cleanse. Maybe folks have had high exposure to toxicity. Maybe folks are dealing with a very specific disease state. That might be a little more focused there. That's on another detox video I did, which I can forward to you all. It's on our YouTube channel. And then a customized approach, again, this is more for maybe if you've got something very specific going on, maybe you're on a lot of medications and you're a little concerned, okay, what do I do? Maybe you've got somebody's in a very weakened state, they're very sick or something. That's really about it. I wouldn't jump in right away. Or maybe someone's pregnant or nursing. You gotta always be considered around that. Or maybe maybe there's a fertility support. Fertility is going to be different in terms of cleansing. But if you do anything customized, especially with me, I'll require compliance and a free attitude adjustment I'll give you. So it's going to change. So let's see what's on the next slide as we finish up in our last 2 minutes. So all of these that I've talked about are simple and straightforward. You got to just pick one. You got to do it, and you got to stick with it. That's the biggest thing we see. You can do it. Thank you. That's the biggest thing we see is that's fine right there. That folks just, I want to do it. I want to do it. I want to do it. you just it's kind of like jumping in the pool, right? If you keep dipping your toe in and it's too cold, I found the best way is just to jump in sometimes. So again, this is kind of your go-to with all this. This wasn't about just one thing tonight. This was about why you need to do it, how to do it, what we offer. And when you look at this and go through it, if you buy the program tonight, you've got the little guide and it takes you from step one and through. And I've kind of prepared you for what to expect, especially for the 21 day. 10-day, same thing, comes with a guide. Everything is there for you. Super easy. If you do the 21 day, you can come to the Zoom if you have questions. You might say, okay, I'll get it tonight. And Tommy's Zoom is on Wednesday. So I will get started right away on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, depending on what you feel. Do not wait too long, because the biggest thing too is you get the stuff and you just sit there and you don't do it. You're not, tomorrow's a better day. You can always put it off till tomorrow. But again, this is about health. So we try and focus on that now. Bonus tips we talked about: when you do these, buy organic at the store, local if you can, seasonal, asparagus, what grows in the spring, light greens, one ingredient foods, already talked about that. Sweet potato example, carrot example, coconut oil example. And live a lifestyle we don't need to detox from. So again, we start to develop that lifestyle, and this is a good first step for folks that are new to all of this, especially. And then last slide, I think, is tonight, if you want to do any of these, thank you for coming. So if you want to do the 21 day, we'll do 25 off of that, $10 off any 10 day if you do any of those today. And like I said, the Zoom is free if you do the 21 day. I'm going to spend some time with you and we'll be talking in more depth. And lastly, thank you. See if we have any questions here. Journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. You can do this. Like I said, everything has been designed to be simple and easy to follow. And all you have to do now is just grab your pantry list, your shopping list, get some real food, some things you're excited about, and make some shakes. Blender is nice, but I'll have this I can give away if we don't have any questions. For a question here. Any questions as we come to a close? 5 minutes.